If you've survived a painful breakup, battled your inner demons, and emerged on the other side, you're not the same person anymore. And the love that's coming? It will be so different, so unexpected, that even you won't recognize yourself in it. This isn't wishful thinking. This is Carl Jung's psychology revealing the most profound transformation a human being can experience. Before we dive deep into this journey, I need you to do something. Think about who you were in your last relationship. Really picture that person, their fears, their patterns, their way of loving. Now, I want you to understand something profound. That person no longer exists. You have died and been reborn, and most people around you haven't even noticed. Today, we're exploring one of Carl Jung's most powerful concepts and how it applies to the most vulnerable part of our lives, our capacity to love. This video will be a journey, so get comfortable, maybe grab a journal, because by the end, you'll understand why your next love will shock not just everyone around you, but yourself most of all. And if this resonates with you, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. This channel is dedicated to deep psychological exploration, not surface-level advice. We're building a community of people who aren't afraid to look within. Act 1. The death of the old self. Let me start with a story. There was a woman, let's call her Sarah. For years, Sarah attracted the same type of partner, emotionally unavailable, charming at first, but ultimately unable to meet her halfway. She'd pour herself into these relationships, becoming smaller and smaller until finally, the relationship would collapse, leaving her devastated. After her last breakup, something different happened. Instead of immediately jumping into dating apps or seeking validation, Sarah sat with her pain. She didn't know it then, but she was undergoing what Jung called the individuation process. Now, you might be thinking, what does individuation have to do with my love life? Everything. Absolutely everything. Carl Jung believed that the journey of becoming whole, of integrating all parts of ourselves, the light and the shadow, was the central task of human existence. And nowhere is this more evident than in our intimate relationships. When you go through a significant transformation, whether it's a painful breakup, a period of isolation therapy, or a spiritual awakening, you're not just healing. You're literally becoming a different person at a psychological level. Your neural pathways are rewiring. Your value system is shifting. Your unconscious patterns are being brought into consciousness. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. And if you're watching this video, you know exactly what he means. Let's break down what's actually happening during this transformation. First, the ego death. Your ego, the constructed self you presented to the world, begins to crumble. All those defense mechanisms you built since childhood, they're no longer working. The mask you wore in relationships, it's been shattered. This is terrifying because the ego's job is to protect you, to keep you safe. But safety often comes at the cost of authenticity. In your past relationships, your ego was in control. It chose partners based on unconscious programming, maybe. You were replaying your relationship with a parent, or seeking someone to complete you because you felt incomplete. Your ego was running a program installed years ago, and you didn't even know it. Second, shadow integration. Here's where it gets really interesting. Jung believed we all have a shadow, the parts of ourselves we've rejected, denied, or hidden away because they were deemed unacceptable by society, our family, or our own conscious mind. In relationships, we often project our shadow onto our partners. That quality you couldn't stand in your ex, there's a good chance it was actually a disowned part of yourself. The neediness you hated? Perhaps you've been denying your own needs. The emotional unavailability you resented? Maybe you've been disconnected from your own emotions. The transformation happens when you stop projecting and start integrating. You begin to own your shadow. You admit, yes, I can be selfish. Yes, I have needs. Yes, I'm capable of manipulation when I'm scared. This isn't self-flagellation, it's liberation. Third, anima-animus development. Jung had this fascinating concept of the anima and animus. For those who identify as men, the anima represents the unconscious feminine qualities. For those who identify as women, the animus represents the unconscious masculine qualities. For non-binary individuals, it's about integrating both these archetypal energies. In immature love, we project these inner figures onto our partners. We expect them to carry the qualities we haven't developed in ourselves. A man might project his anima onto a woman, expecting her to be his muse, his emotional caretaker, his source of meaning. A woman might project her animus onto a man, expecting him to be her protector, her decision-maker, her strength. But when you transform, something radical happens. You begin to develop these qualities within yourself. You become whole. And when you're whole, you don't need another person to complete you. You want them, but you don't need them. And that changes everything. So if you've been through hell and back, if you've done the work of looking at yourself honestly, if you've integrated your shadow and developed your inner masculine or feminine, congratulations. You've died to your old self, and your next love will reflect this profound transformation. Act 2. The signs of transformation. Now let's get practical. How do you know if you've actually transformed, or if you're just telling yourself a story? Because here's the thing, the ego is tricky. It can convince you that you've changed when really you've just adopted a new mask, a new defense mechanism. I'm going to share with you the real signs of transformation based on Jungian psychology. And I want you to be brutally honest with yourself as we go through these. Sign 1. You're comfortable with solitude. This is the first and most obvious sign. If the thought of being alone terrifies you, if you need constant validation from others, if you're already plotting your next relationship before you've processed the last, one you haven't transformed yet, and that's okay, but be honest about it. True transformation means you've developed what Jung called psychological self-sufficiency. You enjoy your own company. You can sit with silence without immediately reaching for your phone. You've built a relationship with yourself that's so rich, so fulfilling, that another person would be enhancement, not salvation. Jung said, loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself. When you've transformed, you can communicate with yourself. You've become your own best friend, your own therapist, your own parent. Sign 2. Your relationship patterns have genuinely shifted. Here's a test. Think about the last 3 people you were attracted to. Were they all variations of the same person? Did they trigger the same wounds, activate the same anxious or avoidant patterns? If you've transformed, something fascinating happens. You're no longer attracted to the same type. In fact, the people who used to make your heart race now leave you, feeling nothing, maybe even repulsion. That's because your unconscious has rewired itself. The wound that used to seek familiar pain now seeks genuine connection. I remember reading about a man who had always dated women who were critical and withholding, just like his mother. After years of therapy and inner work, he went on a date with a woman who fit his old pattern perfectly, and he felt bored, actually bored. Meanwhile, he found himself drawn to a woman who was warm, emotionally available, and consistent qualities that would have felt too boring to his wounded self. That's transformation. Your attraction template has upgraded. Sign 3. You take responsibility for your patterns. This one is huge. Before transformation, we're all victims of our circumstances. They did this to me. If only they had changed. I always attract narcissists, emotionally unavailable, people commitment phobes. After transformation, you recognize your role in co-creating these dynamics. not in a self-blaming way, but in an empowered way. You understand that you attracted certain people because of unhealed wounds within yourself. You stayed in unhealthy situations because of your own abandonment fears or low self-worth. You tolerated poor treatment because you hadn't learned to treat yourself well. Jung put it perfectly, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When you've transformed, you stop calling it fate. You call it pattern recognition, and you choose differently. Sign 4. You've grieved your lost potential selves. This is the one nobody talks about, but it's crucial. Transformation requires mourning. You have to grieve the person you thought you'd become, the relationship you thought you'd have, the life you imagined. Maybe you thought you'd be married by 30 with 2 kids. Maybe you thought that person was the one and you'd grow old together. Maybe you had a whole fantasy about who you'd be in relationship. Those versions of you had to die for the real you to emerge. And that death requires proper mourning. If you've transformed, you've done this grief work. You've cried for the lost futures. You've acknowledged what will never be. And then you've let it go. Sign 5. Your relationship with your parents has shifted. Jung believed that much of our psychological work involves separating from our parents' psyche and becoming our own person. In relationships, we unconsciously seek to resolve our parental wounds through our partners. If you've transformed, your relationship with your parents, whether they're alive or not, has fundamentally changed. Maybe you've forgiven them. Maybe you've set boundaries. Maybe you've simply stopped expecting them to be different and accepted them as flawed humans. Most importantly, you've stopped looking for your parent in your partner. You're not trying to get your partner to give you the love your mother couldn't provide or the convention or approval your father withheld. You're seeking an adult relationship between 2 whole people. Sign 6. You can hold paradox. Before transformation, we think in black and white. Someone is either all good or all bad. We're either totally healed or completely broken. A relationship is either perfect or doomed. After transformation, you can hold complexity. You understand that people are multifaceted. You can love someone and still recognize they're not right for you. You can appreciate what a past relationship taught you while also acknowledging the pain it caused. You can be deeply healed and still have work to do. This is what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to hold opposing truths simultaneously. It's a sign of psychological maturity, and it completely changes how you approach love. Sign 7. You're not afraid of your own depth. Here's something beautiful that happens when you transform. You stop being afraid of your own intensity, your own depth, your own complexity. You stop dumbing yourself down or making yourself smaller to be more palatable. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." If you've transformed, you're claiming that privilege. You're done pretending. You're done performing. You're done twisting yourself into shapes to earn love. And here's what's wild. This terrifies some people. Your authenticity will make some people uncomfortable. Your depth will be too much for those who prefer surface-level connection. Your standards will seem too high to those who are used to scraps. But to the right person, to someone who has also done their work, your authenticity will be irresistible. Your depth will be fascinating. Your standards will be respected. And that brings us to the most important part of this whole conversation, Act 3. Why your next love will shock everyone. So you've transformed. You've integrated your shadow, developed your anima or animus, taken responsibility for your patterns. You've become whole. Now what? Now you're about to experience a kind of love that will shock everyone, including yourself. And I mean shock. Not because it's dramatic or toxic or chaotic. In fact, for the first time, it might be none of those things. And that's exactly what will be shocking. Let me explain the 3 ways your next love will be completely unexpected. The first shock: the person won't fit your type. Remember how we talked about attraction templates? When you were operating from your wounds, you had a very specific type. Maybe you liked bad boys or unavailable women. Maybe you were drawn to people who were intensely charismatic but emotionally inconsistent. Maybe you liked fixers or projects people you could save. Your transformed self? Completely different attraction template. I'll give you a real example. I knew a woman who had always dated extremely extroverted, dominant men. Every boyfriend was a loud, take-charge personality who made her feel small. After her transformation, she found herself deeply attracted to a quiet, thoughtful artist who made her feel seen rather than overshadowed. Her friends were shocked. "He's so different from your usual type," they said. And she replied, "Exactly. My usual type almost destroyed me." Your next love might be someone you would have never given a chance to before. They might be a different age, race, body type, profession, or personality than your previous patterns. And everyone who knows your history will be confused. Good, let them be confused. Jung would say that you're no longer choosing from your complex, you're choosing from your wholeness. You're not trying to fix or complete yourself through another person. You're choosing based on genuine compatibility, shared values, and mutual respect. The second shock: the relationship will feel easy. This is the one that will really mess with your head. If you're used to chaotic, dramatic, on-again, off-again relationships, a healthy relationship will feel wrong at first. It will feel boring. Too simple. Where's the tension? Where's the drama? Where's the pain that you've come to associate with passion? Here's a hard truth. Many people mistake trauma bonding for true love. The intensity of anxious avoidant dynamics, the highs and lows of unstable attachment, the anxiety of not knowing where you stand. Our nervous systems can become addicted to this chaos. We call it passion, but it's really just activation. When you've transformed, you're no longer attracted to activation. You're attracted to peace. And peace, at first, can feel disorienting. Your next love might be characterized by consistent communication instead of mind games, secure attachment instead of push-pull dynamics, mutual respect instead of power struggles, collaborative problem-solving instead of explosive fights, stable intimacy instead of intermittent reinforcement. And everyone, especially those who knew you in your chaotic relationships, will be shocked. They might even say things like, "Don't you miss the excitement? Aren't you worried it's too comfortable? Where's the spark?" But you'll know something they don't. Real love isn't supposed to feel like warfare. Real passion doesn't require drama. The spark isn't about volatility, it's about genuine connection, curiosity, and co-creation. Jung wrote about what he called conjunctio, the alchemical union of opposites. This isn't about two broken people clinging to each other. It's about two whole people choosing to intertwine their lives while maintaining their individuality. It's about mystery and knowing, independence and intimacy existing simultaneously. The third shock: you'll be unrecognizable in the relationship. This is perhaps the most profound shift. The way you behave in your next relationship will be so different from your past. Patterns that people who knew the old you won't even recognize you. If you were anxiously attached, always texting, always seeking reassurance, always worried about abandonment, your transformed self will be secure. You'll give space. You'll trust. You'll communicate needs directly instead of through manipulation or passive aggression. If you were avoidantly attached, always running, always keeping emotional distance, always ready to bolt at the first sign of vulnerability, your transformed self will be present. You'll stay through discomfort. You'll share your inner world. You'll practice intimacy instead of independence at all costs. If you were codependent, always fixing, always sacrificing yourself, always making your partner's emotions your responsibility, you're transformed. Self will have boundaries. You'll prioritize yourself. You'll recognize that you can't save anyone. You'll love from overflow, not from depletion. Your friends might say, "You're so different in this relationship," and you'll reply, "No, I'm actually myself for the first time." Because here's the secret that Jung understood. We can only be truly ourselves when we've integrated all parts of ourselves. When we're no longer hiding our shadow, projecting our inner figures, or running from our wounds, we're free to simply be. And that authentic presence is magnetic in a way that no performance ever could be. The practical manifestation. Let me get really specific about what this might look like. In conflict, old you, reactive, defensive, brings up past wounds, says things to hurt, shuts down or explodes. New you takes space to regulate, listens to understand, takes responsibility. For your part, seeks resolution, not victory. In intimacy, old you performs, hides vulnerability, seeks validation, anxiety about being enough. New you shows up authentically, shares honestly, comfortable with imperfection, secure in your word. In decision-making, old you abandons yourself to keep the peace, resents compromises, makes decisions from fear. New you honors your own needs, creates win-win solutions, makes decisions from values. In communication, old you hints, manipulates, plays games, tests your partner, assumes they should just know. New you direct, clear, honest, asks for what you need, creates safety for your partner to do the same. Everyone who knew the old you will be shocked by these changes. Some will celebrate your growth. Others might feel threatened by it. Your transformation holds up a mirror to their own stagnation. But the person who will be most shocked? You, because you'll realize that the love you've been seeking your whole life was never about finding the perfect person. It was about becoming whole, enough to recognize and receive healthy love when it arrives. Act 4. The shadow side of transformation. Now I need to tell you something that most self-help content won't say. There's a shadow side to transformation. And if we're going to honor Jung's work authentically, we need to talk about it. The first challenge: loneliness on the path. Here's a hard truth. When you transform, you might find yourself very alone for a while. The people who knew the old you might not understand the new you. Your old friends who bonded with you over complaining about relationships might not know how to relate to your newfound peace. Your family might prefer the version of you that was easier to control. Jung called this the loneliness of individuation. As you become more yourself, you might find that fewer people can meet you where you are. This isn't about superiority, it's about frequency. You're vibrating at a different level now, and not everyone can match that frequency. This period can be incredibly challenging. You might question whether the transformation was worth it. You might feel like you've outgrown everyone in your life. You might wonder if you'll ever find people who truly understand you. But here's what I want you to know. This loneliness is temporary. As you continue to embody your authentic self, you will attract people who resonate with who you've become. Quality over quantity. Depth over breadth. The second challenge: the pressure to rush. Society doesn't reward transformation. It rewards productivity, action, results. Family members ask, "So, are you dating anyone?" Friends try to set you up. Dating apps promise instant connection. But transformation operates on a different timeline. You can't rush integration. You can't force readiness. And your transformed self knows this. The pressure to rush into your next relationship can be intense. There's this fear. What if I'm alone forever? What if I missed my chance? What if all the good ones are taken? These are the ego's fears, not your soul's truth. Your transformed self understands that there's divine timing to these things, that the right connection will emerge when both people are ready. Not rushing is how we recreate old patterns with new people. Jung advised, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Stay awake. Don't fall back asleep just because loneliness is uncomfortable. The third challenge, the temptation to regress. Here's something nobody tells you. Transformation isn't linear. There will be moments when you're triggered back into old patterns. A certain type of person will spark your old wiring. Fear will make you want to reach for old coping mechanisms. Loneliness will make you question everything you've learned. This is normal. This is human. This doesn't mean you haven't transformed. Jung understood that the psyche moves in spirals, not straight lines. You might encounter the same issue multiple times, but each time at a deeper level of understanding. Each time with more tools. Each time with more consciousness. The key is to catch yourself, to recognize when you're being pulled back into old patterns, to choose differently even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. The fourth challenge, holding standards in a world that calls them too high. Your transformed self has standards, non-negotiables, boundaries, deal breakers, and people will tell you that you're being too picky, too rigid, too demanding. Let me be clear. Having standards after transformation isn't about perfection or unrealistic expectations. It's about knowing what you need for relationship to be healthy and refusing to settle for less. You're not looking for a perfect person. You're looking for a person who has done their own work, can communicate effectively, shares your core values, treats you with consistent respect, is capable of secure attachment, takes responsibility for their behavior, is emotionally available and mature. These aren't too high standards. These are baseline requirements for adult relationships. But in a world where many people are operating from their wounds, these standards will eliminate a lot of potential partners. And that's exactly the point. Jung would say you're no longer willing to abandon yourself for connection. You're no longer willing to betray your soul to avoid loneliness. You're no longer willing to make yourself small to make someone else comfortable. This takes courage. It takes faith. It takes a deep trust that the universe or God or fate or whatever you believe in will eventually bring you someone who can meet you as an equal. The fifth challenge, integrating past and present. Here's something subtle but important. Transformation doesn't mean erasing your past. It means integrating it. Those past relationships, those old patterns, those wounds, they're part of your story. They shaped you. They taught you. They were necessary for your becoming. The challenge is holding compassion for who you were while honoring who you've become. It's recognizing that you made the best choices you could with the consciousness you had at the time. It's forgiving yourself for staying too long, loving the wrong people, ignoring red flags. Your next love will benefit from all those lessons. Every heartbreak prepared you. Every mistake taught you. Every wound that healed made you stronger. Jung wrote, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. You're choosing to become someone who loves consciously, someone who chooses wisely, someone who honors themselves and their partner. And that choice, made every day, is what transformation really means. Act 5. Recognizing your transformed match. So you've transformed. You've navigated the challenges. You're holding your standards while staying open-hearted. And then, you meet someone. But how do you know if they're a match for your transformed self? How do you distinguish between a healthy connection and another lesson in disguise? Let me give you the framework. Green flag 1. They've done their work. Your match won't be perfect. Nobody is. but they will have done significant inner work. They'll be able to talk about their patterns, their therapy, their growth. They'll take responsibility for past relationship failures. They'll be curious about their own psychology. This doesn't mean they need to reference Jung or know psychological terminology. It means they're self-aware. They notice their triggers. They're willing to be wrong. They apologize authentically. They're committed to growth. When two people who have done their work come together, something beautiful happens. You're not trying to fix each other. You're witnessing each other's continued evolution. You're supporting each other's becoming. You're learning together. Green flag 2. The pacing feels natural. Healthy love doesn't need to be rushed. There's no love bombing, no premature intensity. No, I've never felt this way before after 2 dates. Instead, there's a natural unfolding, curiosity, patience, interest. That builds rather than burns out. Your transformed self won't be swept off your feet by intensity. You'll be drawn in by consistency, by someone who shows up, by gradual trust building, by actions that match words over time. This might feel less exciting at first, especially if you're used to the roller coaster. But excitement isn't the same as connection, and your nervous system knows the difference. Green flag 3. Your attachment styles complement rather than trigger. If you've done your attachment work, you're moving toward secure attachment. Your ideal match won't be perfectly secure again. Nobody is, but they'll be working in that direction. You'll notice that conflicts feel different. Instead of triggering each other's core wounds repeatedly, you'll be able to regulate, communicate, and repair. When? In practical terms, it means you can say, "I love you, and I'm upset with you right now," without those feelings canceling each other out. The litmus test. Here's the ultimate test. Does this relationship make you more yourself or less? Does it expand your capacity for love or contract it? Do you feel more alive, more creative, more open or more anxious, more confused, more small? Your transformed self deserves a love that feels like coming home to yourself, not abandoning yourself for someone else. Trust that discernment. Trust that wisdom. You didn't transform, only to settle for a relationship. That makes you betray everything you've learned. We're coming to the end of our journey today, but really, this is just the beginning of yours. If you've made it this far, if you've resonated with what we've explored, then you're part of a courageous minority. Most people don't transform. Most people repeat the same patterns their entire lives, wondering why their relationships keep failing, why they keep attracting the same type, why love keeps hurting. But you chose differently. You chose consciousness over comfort. You chose growth over stagnation. You chose to face your shadow, integrate your parts, and become whole. And now, you're standing at a threshold. The old you is dead. The new you is still emerging. And your next love? It's out there, being prepared for you just as you're being prepared for it. But here's what I want you to remember in the waiting. First, your transformation is not about attracting love, it's about becoming love. The right relationship is the byproduct, not the goal. Focus on continuing to become more yourself, more whole, more authentic. The love will come. Second, don't rush. Don't settle. Don't betray everything you've learned because you're lonely or scared or tired of waiting. Jung said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Wait for the reaction. Wait for the alchemy. You'll know it when it happens. Third, trust the process. There's a reason your last relationship ended. There's a reason you went through what you went through. There's a reason you transformed. All of it was preparation for what's coming. Fourth, stay open. Yes, have standards. Yes, have boundaries. But don't become so protected that you miss genuine connection. Your transformed self can hold both discernment and openness, wisdom and vulnerability, strength and softness. The final truth. I want to leave you with one of Jung's most beautiful insights. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Your next love won't look like anyone else's. It won't follow a prescribed timeline or format. It won't check all the boxes that society says it should. And that's exactly what will make it yours. It will be a love that reflects your unique journey, your specific healing, your individual soul. It will be unexpected, surprising, maybe even shocking to those who thought they knew you. But you'll recognize it. Your transformed self will know. And when it arrives, you'll understand that everything, every heartbreak, every lesson, every moment of loneliness and growth was leading you here, to this love, this person, this version of yourself that can finally receive what you've always deserved. So keep going, keep growing, keep trusting. Your transformation is not just preparing you for ice love, self-love, the kind of love that magnetizes the right person at the right time. And when they arrive, everyone will be shocked. But you? You'll just smile, knowing that this is exactly what was always meant to be. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Have you experienced this kind of transformation? Are you in the middle of it right now? What shocked you most about your own journey? Leave a comment below. Let's create a community of people who understand that real love begins with becoming real ourselves. And if this video resonated with you, do 3 things. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We dive deep into Jung, psychology, and personal transformation every week. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's going through their own metamorphosis and needs to know they're not alone. Download the free guide I've created, Integration Work, a Jungian approach to preparing for conscious love. Link is in the description. Remember, you are not the same person who started this video 60 minutes ago. Something has shifted. Honor that shift. Trust your transformation. And get ready, your next love is going to shock everyone, most of all you. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll explore the shadow work practices that accelerate this transformation. Until then, keep becoming.